This is Algebra 1, Lesson 25, Solution of Equations. Better titled, probably, Solving Two-Step Equations. Now, there are a lot of things in life where we follow steps to accomplish something, like putting on your shoe. Now, you would normally, if you're wearing some tennis shoes, put your sock on first, like in this first picture, and then you would put that foot into the shoe, and then you would tie the shoelaces, and then you would be finished, right? Even though there's an error here. I guess these laces should be untied. I just noticed that. So, but we can follow the steps. We know how to do this. Now, the funny thing is, I know some people put sock, shoe, but then some people do sock, shoe, okay? And everybody usually has their own method of doing that. But you can't switch the order of this and put the shoe on and then put the sock on, right? Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, there's an order that you do the problem, like an order of operations problem, okay? And then, like, let's say I gave you this. If I said take, do this expression. You know, because of what we've learned, that you would do this multiplication first. And you would get that answer. And then you would subtract the 2 and you would get the final answer, right? That we know to do the multiplication before we do the subtraction. Now, what we're going to be doing today is kind of extending that to solve equations. So before we do it, I want to list these steps of putting the shoe on. First, you're going to put the sock on, and you'll just bear with me, you'll see why in just a second. And then you're going to put the shoe on, and then you're going to tie the laces, and then you're done. Okay, now let's say you want to take the shoe off. So this is putting the shoe on. Put shoe on. Those are the steps you follow. Now, if you want to take the shoe off and go back to just your foot, okay, you want to get back to just the foot, what would you do? Would you take the sock off and then take the shoe off and then untie the laces? Okay, we know we have to do the opposite of what we were doing. So we put the sock on, so now we're going to have to take it off. We're going to have to take the shoe off, and we're going to have to untie the laces. We know we're going to have to do the opposite, but we're also going to have to follow the opposite order, aren't we? And go back up. So let's list the appropriate order over here. If we want to take the shoe off, we're going to have to untie the laces. Okay? We're going backwards and opposite. Okay? Then we would put the shoe, take it off. And then we would take the sock off. Okay? So what is the point of this? Well, if you take that line of thinking and then the properties that we've been learning, the additive property of equality said we can add the same thing to both sides of an equation and it won't change the answer. The multiplicative property of equality says we can multiply or divide both sides of an equation and it won't change the answer. So let's go with this equation. So here's where we're headed. All right, I need to know what this value is for x that makes this true. And I could kind of guess and check and figure out what it is, right? Some number. When I take away the 2, I get 10. I could kind of figure that out, couldn't I? You could guess and check it. Well, I want to think about it if we knew what x was. You would take 3, you would multiply it by the number that you know that x is, or that you think x is, and then you would subtract 2 and see if you get 10, right? So I'm going to list those steps over here. First, we would multiply by 3. And secondly, we would subtract 2. Now, like we were talking about the shoe situation a minute ago, if we wanted to go backwards, if we wanted to get back to where we just had x, we could follow these directions, these steps that we just wrote, but follow them backwards and the inverse operation. So instead of multiplying by 3 and then subtracting 2, you're going to add 2, and then you're going to divide by 3. So you'll start with this for 1, okay? And then you'll go here for 2. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, it's a little messy. Sorry about that. But I think it'll help you remember how to do it. We're always going to add or subtract first with these two-step equations. Now, I'm adding 2 to both sides because that'll make the minus 2 go away. That cancels out, and I'm left on the left side with just this 3x. So I'm going to bring it down, 3x. That minus 2 is gone. I added 2 over here to balance my equation, and I get 12. So I just did this step. Step 1, add 2 instead of subtract 2. Now I'm going to do step 2, which is divide by 3. They were multiplying by 3. I'm going to divide by 3. And then I get x is equal to 4. And I can check it. Let's put that in. Let's put this 4 in for x. So I can do 3 times 4 is 12, minus 2 is 10, and I got it right. Okay? So if you don't know what to do, you're going to think, what would I do if I knew this value? Well, I would have to multiply it by 3 and then subtract 2. So let's do the opposite and backwards. Let's add 2 and then divide by 3.